The Supply and Chain Podcast with Leo and Kristine.
Hey, we are very happy to welcome Brice to our new episode today. As a passionate entrepreneur, Brice looks at innovative, sustainable ways to facilitate growth in legacy businesses. He's mastermind behind Bizu, what was set up after his experience working for Decathlon in Asia Pacific and advocating company to stop using plastic bags. This initiative was later adopted across Thailand retail landscape. Brice is sharing his innovation and entrepreneurship learnings as a guest speaker at Singapore Management University, as well as National University of Singapore. Welcome, Brice.
Well, Brice, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
And for this episode, I want to start asking you a few questions about supply chains. One of the topics that are most frequent right now discussed and heavily discussed in different forums is with the pandemic and how strained all the supply chains are. Resilience is the new key word. What do you think about resilience in supply chains?
Well, to me, it goes into it's actually pretty simple. Resilience, to me, it's linked to the vision that we have, and I would say more specifically, the thought that we have, the strategy that we have, is in the sense that to have good resilience, we need to think long term, and in many companies, I mean, right now we can say it in many different aspects, and pretty much in every country is that mostly we think short term, and to build a strong resilience world, we need to think long term, and thinking long term means in different aspect, and the approach is very different. If we talk, for example, let's see it ourselves. How will it be? Is if I tell you tomorrow, if the landlord of your apartment, let's say you rent an apartment, and your landlord tell you every day if they renew the contract or not. Will you invest anything in your apartment? Probably not, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's not like this. It's our contract. It's maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years, maybe less, maybe more, whatever. It's just that it's much longer than this, and so then you will invest a little bit more in the infrastructure, in your furnitures, in the decoration. And so it changed the whole perspective. We're basically thinking short term and long term is in companies. It's exactly the same way, which means that it's completely different, and the strategy that you have is completely different. And on the daily basis, it's completely different. And to have a resilient supply chain, we need to think very long term, and that's the only way that we can have it.
Yeah, it's very interesting because you're right that I guess opportunistic was the word to describe it, right? Like it was like, oh, this country's cheap, let's just go over there, or like
think about it now.
I'm working with you today, tomorrow who knows. So
yes.
it was a very, not even renting. It was more like being in hotels, like I'm just going to be here this week. You don't invest anything, like 0 sense of like relationship or investing.
Yes.
Is really opportunistic. But now when all your roads are closed, when you need to really invest in thinking long-term, that changes the objectives in the supply chain.
When things do not go in the right direction, or do not go in the direction that we planned, everything collapsed. In the sense that we don't really have stock, right? Even in our home, we don't have stock because there is flow of food or whatever it could be constantly, right? And so basically, as soon as you break one route, or you block one route, where everything collapses. And so we realized with the pandemic that this has to change. Even more with the evergreen cargo, right, in Suez Canal. And then I would say that it's changing. Will it change really that much? I don't see such drastic change as of now. Like we may need a second pandemic to to see really big change, or at least the changes that we need to have really. Yeah. It's a bit like, with the financial crisis in 2008. We knew that basically everything that happened and everything that we learned from it basically didn't change much, in the sense that for the banks, it was they behave exactly the same way, if not worse. Right? What I can see myself, it's similar things. Is that it changes not that much compared to before.
Yeah, we're right now caught in a very awkward place between the bullwhip effect of the pandemic, between like overproducing toilet paper because people run out of toilet paper in some places. So we're still kind of like stocking up on toilet paper. We're also thinking, okay, what is going to be the demand of the consumer behavior once this bullwhip effect kind of like stops for a little bit? But yeah, like it's definitely now we need to think of even today, right? As we're talking today, we're still having countries that might be in a lockdown, that are in lockdowns. So having a very extended supply chain, as you said, in a supply chain that is very fragile, one of these things happens, and then your supply just stops.
Yeah.
Talking about technology, I have a question to you, Brice.
Go ahead.
Which innovations or any innovation technologies you think would be helpful creating more sustainable supply chains? I know you've been working with a lot of FMCG, fashion, sportswear companies. Maybe you can give a good angle to this.
On this specific question, we don't really need to have technology. I mean, in the sense that it's not compulsory, clearly not. We can have a much better supply chain without technology. I give you an example. You mentioned fashion. You mentioned clothes. If you have organic cotton, for example, do you need technology for this? Well, no. You just need to do it the right way. And you do not always need technology. And there is this debate where technology is what will help you to have a more sustainable world. And we see this often. Like that's the only way to get away from it. Where basically we never had so much technology, right, in 2021. So if really it was the case, we wouldn't be in this situation where the planet is so much in danger. And so clearly technology and more sustainable or more resilient world doesn't go together. I will even say that they go in opposite direction. And so in this case, I will maybe use more a low tech kind of approach to have a better and more resilient supply chain.
Can you explain a little bit what you mean by low tech?
So low tech basically is the opposite of high tech.
Yeah,
high tech.
I know, but I mean, how low tech? Like we're talking about pigeons going from one place to another, typewriters.
So it's just that there is a part of tech that you don't necessarily need, and also because tech help us to of course to be more productive. At the same time, it creates more CO2 emission, greenhouse gases emission, and so basically it doesn't necessarily mean that more tech or more high tech facilities or products will help us to have a more sustainable world. In the sense that you somehow need to remove this. What does it mean more concretely? Well, on our daily habits, right? It will be more minimalistic kind of approach. With my company Bisu, we distribute a product for air conditioning units, and we allow air conditioning to be up to 50% more efficient, in the sense that your consumption drops by up to 50%. And the way we do it is just by plugging a net in the aircon, which is made of a specific ceramic and polyethylene, and that's it. And it's fantastic. It's really revolutionary. So most companies, they tell us, how do you do that? You need IoT, you need AI.
Yeah, exactly.
Nope. Nope. You don't always need it.
Yeah, you don't need to connect to the internet to get everything done. So there are innovations, but they are not innovations based on artificial technology, but using nature to the way it was designed.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly.
That's a very refreshing, using your analogy, refreshing take. So also another word that is spoken a lot regarding supply chains is transparency. People want to know where their products are coming from, or where the materials that their products are coming from. And that is a concern in every single industry. Do you think it's possible to achieve 100% transparency in a supply chain?
I mean, one solution that we all know will be blockchain. And then the issue with blockchain is what we have seen. I mean, just what is the opposite of it. But it depends on what we want, and if we want transparency using blockchain, basically, it's somehow. I mean, is it more sustainable? Well, it's a different aspect. It is at other aspect is not, right? Because blockchain technology it's
just consuming energy at all.
It uses a lot of energy. Exactly. Then you use better products, right? On the other hand, but right.
Yeah.
Overall,
it's a trade-off, right? Like how much transparency do you need to be to have peace of mind with a product? But on the other side, even if you're getting like the best certificate, like full transparency, but at what cost financially, and also, like as you're saying, sustainability, you can say it's the product is organic, but the way to show that the product is organic, it's not very sustainable.
At the same time, usually you want to be more transparent because you want to show that you use good product. Then transparency doesn't mean necessarily that it's more sustainable. H&M was seen last year as the most transparent fashion company. Are they the most sustainable?
I don't think they're getting that award.
Clearly not. So then it's really a balance that we need to find. But yes, we can be 100% transparent with blockchain. It's possible, clearly, and there are some companies doing it. So Lablaco, for example, where it's pretty small, right? I mean, relatively small. And it's a company that it's fully transparent, and you see from the farmer until us consumers what is the journey of the product. You have an app as well called provenance. It's a French term to say basically where it's coming from. Provenance is an app where basically you can see exactly where your product are coming from, and you can track all the journey of the product. It started with fashion product, and now you have much more than this. Then yes, it's possible, but as you see, also by your question, is that it's not yet really there. Yeah. And ideally, indeed, it needs to be. It shouldn't be an exception. We shouldn't be able to, really do tons of research for this. I think it's also changing a lot, and it's getting better in the sense that now you already have reports on transparency, and you have companies like H&M that are putting a lot of effort to be more transparent. If this company understands that they have to be really transparent, it also means a lot of things. They are even more transparent than a company like Patagonia, for example, which is seen like very sustainable. And so what we can see from consumers is that consumers are willing to have more and more transparency. So transparency, it's one part, and also more local and sustainable product, right? Which again, they are not necessarily the same thing. Yeah. And this goes very fast, and some companies start to understand what I think is that now we are really seeing a revolution on this term. A few years back, we had a digital revolution where basically if your company failed to be more digital, or just failed to be digital, a few years after the company didn't exist. And we have seen this with many companies.
So one last question to wrap things up. Another big trend or big question as we are going through this pandemic and how supply chains are affected is, as you were saying, before we were growing very opportunistically, we're continuously expanding, going to new places. Then, okay, resilience closer to home. Where do you see the trend going? Are we actually containing the supply chain and we're going closer to the market and tighter, or like this expansion will continue? And if it does, how it will be in the future?
This pandemic did really help at all aspects that it should be more resilient and stuff. I mean, I don't think like everybody understood it the same way. Again, exactly as we have seen in 2008, we had some government, they say, yeah, no, we need to have more restrictions. But then you had banks, they say, oh no, we need to have actually less restrictions, and we need to have more freedom. And you had people who wanted just the banks to pay for what they did, not them, right? And now basically we have governments that want to have more resilient society, right? We live in Singapore, and for Singapore, it's clearly a big objective for the next years is to be way more resilient than where we are at the moment. And there is a plan called 30 by 30, for example, which is that Singapore wants to produce 30% of its own food by 2030. Right now, it's 10% only. And so it goes actually it will be very fast. And another part, we have companies that want to continue to have less less resilient supply chain, because where they can save money, and right now they need to save money, right, as much as possible. So it doesn't mean that it will be more resilient. And in another hand, we have people that want to consume better. So last year, we went in July, 3/4 of Americans say that they wanted to have to consume better. to consume in a more sustainable way. So 3/4. I mean, it's huge,
A lot.
right?
It's a big population. Yeah.
It's huge, and we talk about people who are consuming. The U.S. is the biggest polluter on the planet, and clearly we can see the same the same figures or the same thought in many Western countries that are consuming a lot as well. And probably even beyond. So what I mean by this is that people are willing to consume better, and they are pushing their companies to be more sustainable and to have a more resilient approach. So basically, we have three forces that do not go exactly in the same direction, but they are there. And so basically, who will win exactly? What I think is that companies will need to comply more. And again, if they fail to do it, well, they might fail in business just overall, and they might just die. Then I think it will depend on the on certain industries as well, and it will depend on the different companies. I don't think that all the companies will be in the same at the same place. In fashion industries, it will be stronger than others, I believe. In technology, well, what do you want to do? Most of the things are made in China or Asia overall, right? If you are in Latin America, well,
Tell me about it.
it's it will be hard to
start
change
making iPhones in
exactly, right? Okay. And so I think it will depend also on the
you're saying that there will be a space for everyone, but everyone will have to adapt in one way. Either put your cards and put your money in like we're going to be resilient, or put your money as like we're going to maintain some kind of flexibility and expand it. And really the market or even governments through regulations at the end will filter the companies that are in the losing place.
Before governments, people.
The market.
So the market will decide, right? Governments, they always take several years before really acting. In France, they need time. In France, we say 4 to 5 years.
Oh wow!
In a country like Singapore, it's
6 weeks.
less. We talk in days. It's less. For other countries, it's longer, of course. But it will depend on the actors. It will depend on the industry. It will depend on where you are.
Perfect. Thank you very much. This has been
my pleasure.
We've gone through a lot of hot topics in the supply chain industry, but thank you for sharing your experience and your thoughts with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
This was the Supply and Chain Podcast. You can see more episodes on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. Remember to leave a review, like, and subscribe if you want more content like this. See you next time.